the great things about the World Snooker Tour these days is the opportunity to come to new places and visit new countries, and we're here in the very picturesque city of Dornbirn in Austria for the first time. Hector, it's been a really fun week so far, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. As you say, it's one of the best things about the way snooker has grown globally is that you do get to come and stage, first ever ranking events in countries like Austria. I think the players have all really enjoyed it. The 32 of them made it out here after a couple of pretty tough qualifying rounds, and we know a few of them have gone and had a walk around. They like the place. It's sort of market square. I think a couple of people have even gone skiing. There's ski slopes. I'm not sure the players, but a couple of the sort of people who've been working there have managed to make it to the ski slopes, which are only about 10-15 minute drive away from here. So and I think everyone's really enjoyed the experience.
It's been a great fun week off the table and on the table as well. Really interesting. Down to the semi-finals now here in Dornbirn. Two really intriguing matches today. Firstly, this afternoon, Neil Robertson up against Ali Carter, and interesting season for Robertson so far because he's won a big event, Champion of Champions, but he's struggled a little bit in the ranking events. Hadn't been past the last 16 before this week.
Yeah, and there's something he's talked about a couple of times in his matches so far this week. Obviously, as you say, done well in Champion of Champions and the Shanghai Masters, but he has been slightly falling behind in that 1 year list. I think all the players want to be in those 1 year series events. They're potentially very, very lucrative. The Grand Prix, as you say, the Players and the Tour Championships, and this has done him some good in that front. I think he's back up to pretty much 16 on the 1 year list or just outside. He'd be looking to go further and just cement that. But that, as that Neil Robertson's a proven winner, and I think you'd probably at this stage, ahead of the semi-finals, make him just a favourite for the title.
Yeah, he's got a phenomenal strike rate when he gets to the business end of big events. I think this is his 37th ranking event semi-final. The previous 36 he's gone on to win the tournament 16 times. He's got that little strut around the table this week. He played superbly yesterday against Tepchai Anu, made 3 centuries. He's looking like the man at the moment, isn't he? Yeah,
I think so. And I think Neil Robertson. You think Neil Robertson. You think Mark Selby. I mean, they're players who, as you say, strike rate is massive. I think both of them have had a very good strike rate in finals over the years. Mark Selby notably recently. But Neil Robertson, if he gets to the business end, a Saturday or a Sunday, he's going to be very, very tough to beat. If someone's going to beat him, they're going to have to play very, very well, and that's what faces Ali Carter today. Yeah,
and Carter, I'm full of admiration for him because got to the final of the Masters last week. Must have felt this is a big chance to win my first Triple Crown event. Lost a very good, very close final against Stuart Bingham. And we have to remember about Ali. He's got Crohn's disease. That leaves him maybe a little bit more fatigued than some of the other players. But he's picked himself up, come out to Austria, and he's got to another semi-final.
I think it's a phenomenal performance that he's put in this week. I think he spoke to both of us this week about just how gruelling he found last week. I know it was a great fairy tale story, the fact that he was world number 17 and got in when Ronnie O'Sullivan decided not to play at the Masters. He did incredibly well by getting to the final, but I think whereas some people might have just thought, oh well, that's great, I've done really well, Ali was desperate to win that match. He was after a really tough week. As he pointed out, it's not like the Crucible where perhaps you get to go home between matches. The Masters is a very intense, focused week. You're there, you don't really go home. I think he found it very tough. The final itself was a very gruelling match, and he said he literally at a late night at this sort of after final party, I think a couple of beers on the Monday, and then he was flying straight out here. So it was a pretty fast recovery. I think he said that he wasn't feeling very well, and apart from it, he wanted to be professional. It was his job. Obviously, he wanted to come. He could even possibly have sort of withdrawn on medical grounds, but it's credit to him that he certainly didn't do that, and he's given it absolutely everything here, and it could be a really good story for him.
Yeah, that should be a really interesting match this afternoon, and equally intriguing this evening, Gary Wilson against Joe Yulong. Wilson, interesting this week. I mean, particularly last night, he played Marco Fu. He said they were both kind of racing around the table, just potting balls. He was quite self-deprecating about his own chances and his own performance. He's always a little bit down on himself in terms of his technique. But then he knocked in 3 centuries and a 90 last night. I mean, the guy's got some talent.
I think, listen, we all got to know about Gary Wilson, I think, in the sporting world, rather than, the snooker world, we all knew about him. But in the broader sporting world, we all got to know a bit more about him with his great run to the World Championship semi-finals last year. He did play really well last night, as you say, 3 tons and a 80-90 odd, and he was a bit down on himself afterwards. It was quite surprising. I think he's always looking for perfection. He wants that sort of perfect technique, and you know, you can probably beat yourself up a little bit too much as a player about that sometimes. But he played very well. I think, you know, Marco Fu was perhaps struggling a little bit. Gary himself mentioned sort of he thought Marco's, you know, eyesight was a little bit. It was troubling a little bit yesterday. But he himself played very well. And in that semi-final, you've got two players desperate for a first ranking title.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Gary's a great example of a player who he was off the tour for a few years. You know, as we know, as he talked about in the past, working in frozen food factories and a taxi driver. I think only in his late 20s he's come back onto the tour, but he's jumped up the rankings. I think he's earned something like nearly £300,000 over the last couple of years. You know, he's an example of a player who shows you can change your life, you know, even in your late 20s and early 30s.
Yeah, no, I'd say he's the classic sort of sporting late bloomer in that sense, isn't he? He fell off the tour sort of early days, and then, you know, he's had it tough. You know, he went and worked, you know, proper long days as a taxi driver, and as you say, the sort of frozen food factory. A lot of these stories came out during his run at the Crucible. All credit to him, and he is a really, really good player, and I think a lot of people would be very pleased to see him go on and win that first. So he's got to one ranking final before, of course. That was I think it was the China Open, wasn't it? About 5 years ago. I was at that final, and he took that one fairly philosophically, that defeat, because I think he was quite pleased to be there. I've got a feeling that if he was to get to the final tomorrow, he'd be looking a lot more focused on winning the thing. Absolutely,
yeah, and same I think goes for Joe Yulong. Second ranking event semi-final for him. Funnily enough, his first one came in the same event in this tournament in Belgium 3 years ago. I think of all these up-and-coming Chinese players. A lot of people say he's perhaps got the best all-round game. You know, he's a good tactical player. He might not have the kind of devastating break building of someone like a Zhao Xintong, but and particularly I think in beating Mark Williams earlier this week, he showed he's got a lot more to his game.
I think Zhu Yulong is a very interesting player, because I would say 3 years ago, if you talked to a lot of the top players about which of the young Chinese prospects were going to really be the one, a lot of them would have said Zhu Yulong. I mean, I remember Graham Dott saying that to me, that he thought he was certain to be a future world champion. I think John Higgins said the same thing. But he's perhaps been, in terms of profile, maybe slightly overtaken by some of the exploits of your Yan Bingtaos and Zhao Xintongs, but he remains, as you say, a player with a very, very solid all-round game. Very happy in his base in Sheffield, and you just wonder if, you know, his progress up the rankings has been pretty steady, and you're sure that one day he is going to win a big title, and yeah, who knows? Maybe it could be this week.
Yeah, what impressed me about Joe last night was it was his birthday. It's Chinese New Year. He just had a big win, but when I asked him is he going to celebrate, he just said, "I don't drink. I'm going straight to bed."
Yeah, no, very, very professional. As you say, it was a kind of double celebration, really. A Chinese New Year today, Saturday. If he could lift that title, then he'd be able to perhaps have a belated double birthday and Chinese New Year, Year of the Rat, I believe it is, isn't it, this year coming up? So he could have a double celebration when he gets home on Monday.
Yeah, definitely from the Steve Davis School of Preparation rather than Jimmy White. The other thing that impressed me about Joe was he was talking about his coach from China, who is here with him in Austria this week. And when I asked him for his name, he took my pad and my pen and he spelt it out in English letters with better handwriting than I've got. So I'm quite impressed by that.
Yeah, no, his English, you know, like a lot of the players, I mean, they often do sort of practice together, the Chinese lads who are based here, but his English has improved sort of leaps and bounds, as Ding's did. You know, Ding was, let's not forget, he came over here as a 15-year-old, very tough for him to start with. I think Zhu Yulong was telling us yesterday that he moved away from his hometown to Guangzhou at the age of about 12. So it's phenomenal, the sacrifices that some of these players have made to get to the top, and you know, you just hope that they get their rewards.
Great, thank you very much, Hector, and big day coming up, Bet Victor European Masters semi-finals here in Dornbirn. Watch it all live on Eurosport.